Being a good listener is an important skill that can benefit you in many aspects of your life, including relationships, work, and personal growth. But it can also make you very irresistible and alluring as a woman, because being a good listener will make other people feel very comfortable in your presence. You will be able to establish a quicker bond with other people, and they will also trust you. So it will enhance your feminine energy and of course make you an even more high value woman. Hello my dear viewers, welcome to my channel. With your presence and your art of listening, you can achieve that other people perceive you as a very good listener. So we will start with tip number 1. Pay attention. Focus on what the other person is saying and try to understand their perspective. Now, paying attention, of course, has to do with the basic, genuine interest in what the other person has to say. But you can also express and emphasize that with your body language. If you are, for example, sitting together with a person in a public place, such as a cafe or a restaurant, don't let yourself be distracted by what is happening around you. That means don't look when someone is passing that might look interesting to you, or when you hear a group of people talking loudly or something is happening around you. Try not to defocus and put your attention somewhere else in your environment. If you stay with your full attention towards the person that you are listening to, this will strongly show them that you are really focused on what they have to say, and that nobody else, no matter how interesting they come across, can interrupt that connection you're having. So it is very powerful to actually stay focused on someone, even in a public and distracting environment. And another point is something that is, of course, the base, but it's still important to say that in our times, that you should not look on your phone and simply avoid your phone at all in this listening situation. When you're listening, your phone does not exist. Your attention is on the person that you are listening to, and your whole presence is there. And when you manage to put your whole attention towards the other person while they are speaking and you are listening, this will really distinguish you from most people nowadays. Number 2, show interest. There are many non-verbal cues that you can apply to show your interest without saying something. One very easy but very effective technique is to nod. So when you are nodding, when someone is talking to you, in between, of course, not all the time, this will also show them that you are genuinely interested in what they have to say. Another basic technique is to maintain the eye contact with the other person. This is actually something natural, but if there are distractions, it might happen that we look somewhere else. So try to really focus on looking the person in the eye most of the time and really maintaining this eye contact. Another technique that I find very feminine and very cute is to tilt your head while listening. So I really think that this is a very feminine thing, and not only shows that you are really lending your ear to someone, but you also expose part of your neck, which is a very vulnerable and sensual area. And by that, you will not only appear as a very good listener, but you will also enhance your feminine energy and your sensuality as a woman. And maybe you know those cute dogs that when we are talking to them, they tilt their heads like this. And I always found that so cute, and I think this reminds me a little bit of those dogs. And I mean, who isn't totally smitten by such a cute dog when they tilt their head when you're talking to them? So you can apply this little technique combined with the other techniques that I'm telling you here, and it will only benefit you. And of course, you can also use your voice to show interest, but at this point, I would advise you not to say anything, but just use sounds of approval, such as mm-hmm. And by that, you can also emphasize your soft voice, and this will also make you very, very feminine, appealing, and attractive as a listener. Number 3, avoid interrupting. Let other people speak without interrupting them. It's okay to ask clarifying questions, but I will come to that in another point in the end. Here I mean that you should never interrupt a person's train of thought. And of course, this needs a little bit of empathy and a little bit of feeling to perceive when a person is now in a train of thought. But you can also simply pay attention to pauses that they make. So when they don't make any pause and you see that they are thinking very strongly about something, about how to express something, this is when you should not interrupt them. And really try to focus on your role as a listener. And if this is very challenging for you, because of course there are some situations, some topics that might really provoke you to say something or to ask questions. So if you are very challenged by that, try to simply imagine that you are now in a role, in a listener's role. So you could be a therapist at that moment, or an auditioner, or an interviewer. And by imagining yourself to be this person, you might control that urge to ask questions in between and simply try to save your comments or questions until the end. Number 4, empathize. Empathy means trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to understand their feelings and perspectives. So you can of course do that by expressing your understanding verbally. In the previous points, we already established this empathy by your body language. Now you can simply use terms that will show understanding. And those can be things like I understand you, or I can imagine that, or I see, or I feel you. And you can even go further with the feeling statements that are also something that comes from the feminine energy and say something like, wow, this must have felt totally scary, or you must have felt so desperate. With that, you will emphasize even more how much you actually understand the other person, and this is very, very powerful, because by this verbal expression and by this feeling statement, they really get the impression that you are absolutely getting them, that you understand them. Number 5, avoid multitasking. So when you are present with someone and listening to them, and I mean present, so in person, it should be natural that you are not multitasking and not doing other things while listening to the other person. So you should not read your emails on your phone or write your grocery list at that same time. Of course, if you are in a cafe or a restaurant and you are having your cup of coffee or even your meal, it is okay to drink or to eat, but you should do that carefully. So it really depends on the situation and what the person is telling you. If it is just a longer conversation and they are like pouring out their heart and telling you something, and you are both having your dishes there, you can of course eat in between. But if the person is telling you something very intense and very important, you should maybe stop for that moment with eating. So this is something that you should really feel a little bit into. And in general, of course, don't multitask, but as I said, in specific situations, it's totally okay to eat or to drink while listening, but avoid mouth sounds, please. That is not okay. On the other hand, when you are on the phone, you might think that the other person will not see any way that you are like cooking at the same time or cleaning, And I would say that depending on what the other person is telling you, you should still avoid doing something, because the other person can still hear if you are totally attentive or if you are doing other things in the background. But if it is just a relaxed conversation with a friend, you can tell the other person, listen, I am with you and I'm listening to you, but I will do some housework in the background. Please tell me if this is disturbing you. And this way you can still be attentive and you can still use the other techniques to show your interest, like using those verbal statements. But you can of course clean in the background if it's not loud, or cook even. So this is something that really depends. Number 6, clarify. So now I finally allow you to ask something. Listening is not only a passive action. Actually, it is not passive at all, because if you look at the previous points, they all involve some kind of activity, and even if it has not to do with talking. But talking can also belong to being a good listener. And in this point number 6, it is about asking follow-up questions or clarifying questions, because this will also show the other person that you are genuinely interested in what they have to say. But you should apply those questions at the right moment. So not when a person is in their train of thought and has not finished with what they had to say. Only ask those questions when there is a pause and there is something that you really didn't understand, and it would really be helpful to ask this clarifying question. Then you can ask the question. In all other cases, wait until the person finishes, and then you can ask follow-up questions or clarifying questions. And another powerful technique is to summarize what the other person has told you in the end, and then ask follow-up questions. So for example, you could say something simple as, so I understand that this and this has happened to you, and now you have this and this worry about that. So what do you think did the other person intend by doing this and this? And what would now make you feel best facing the situation? So some kind of follow-up questions that show the other person that you are engaging in their problem, what they are telling you, and it will also motivate them to continue talking to you. And believe me that when you apply those techniques, you will not only come across as a very, very empathetic, warm-hearted, attentive, high-value woman, but you will also be very, very magnetic. People will love being in your presence. And also you yourself will feel very good, because you will have many good relationships to people. It is never wrong to develop your listening skills. So start today and tell me in the comments if you liked that video. And in my next video, which I will link here, I will talk about how to have a softer voice, which is of course something that you can also use while listening. So watch that video and I will see you there. Bye bye.